This is Lansdowne Roar, the voice of the fans. Coming up on this episode, we're talking about FAI CEO David Courell facing the media, plus Eamon Dunphy wants three wise men in charge of football in Ireland. Of course, we have the very latest news. It is Lansdowne Roar. You're very welcome. And of course, before I get started, folks, you know where we're going with this. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, please. Don't be one of those illegal watchers, those illegal streamers. That's right, Connor. You tell them. An illegal watcher of this podcast.
I will tell them. I will have a word with them.
Yeah.
I will get that. Prendy will no longer be smiling anymore if people don't subscribe. I'll tell you that for free.
Yeah. Tell them, Martin. Come on.
Yeah, don't be one of them illegals.
No, don't be illegal. Don't be a legal person. Multiple connotations there. But yes, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit the like button. It does help with the algorithm. Tell your family and friends. Even if you have no friends, just tell somebody. I don't know, somebody on the street. And of course, if you want opinion, head over to lansdowneroar.ie. And of course, you can head over to Facebook, Instagram, and our Twitter account. And if you want an audio version of this, head over to, wherever you get your podcast from. But, you should really be watching it and see this gorgeous face to match my gorgeous voice. Lads, very welcome. A lot's happened in Irish football. It always does. We seem to be going through another turbulent period. Strap yourself in. Look, even the walls are moving. Turbulence. Lads, how are you? Are we good, Martin? You all right? Still looking very tanned on the sunbed there, are you? Or
yeah, like Big Ron. There you go. He used to go on a sunbed, didn't he, underneath the big light?
Well, hopefully we don't end up like Big Ron.
Well,
hopefully we don't end up like Big Ron, man, when we take off the year.
Connor, I'm very well, though, Dave. I am very well. I really enjoyed the last episode myself and Connor did, which was in the wake of Marc Canham leaving the FAI. Great live show we did. Lots of interaction with the Raw faithful. And I saw I got taken to task there for my introduction where I said that people on our live and interactive shows have to earn the right for me to give them out a comment, read out their comments or give them, airing their views on the show. And I saw that someone took that quite literally that, you're going to be censoring us and why are you going to, Martin's not going to read opinions that he doesn't agree with. That wasn't what it was about at all. It was the fact that we get a lot of nonsense, don't we? We do have a lot of brilliantly knowledgeable Raw faithful members who are, I'm sure, subscribers of the show, but we do attract a few clowns as well, and present company accepted, of course.
Don't worry, I don't think there's any clowns out there, Martin. It's just you that's getting oversensitive, because do you know why, Dave? You know why?
Why is that? Yeah, of course I do, Connor, but please tell the people.
He's a holder of something that I cannot repeat on this show, but it's a typical English for you. Don't worry, lads. You can say what you want as long as it's aimed at Martin or Dave. But there's no negative comments about me because I'm just a legend. Full-time legend is what I'm employed as these days. So, no, but I'm great, Dave. Thanks for asking. Before Martin had his very passionate rant there, but
I can have a rant. I'm just gonna. I love doing the live YouTube. Obviously, this is because it's visual and everyone can see what we've got. And I'm surprised none of my colleagues here have spotted this little addition to the collection from the Bulgaria game. I'm just going to spin it around and watch the green-eyed monster arrive from Connor there.
Oh. The thing is, would you
like that?
Think Dave remembers one time he was better when he had Matt Doherty as number 7, not Azaz.
There you go. Quite happy with that little addition though from the game.
Lovely jersey.
I remember Paul McGrath wore number 7 at times, but there you go.
Did, yeah.
Well, before
when it was just 1 to 11, innocent times.
Yeah, better times as well. But there you go. See, we're back to our usual self. Connor, I'm glad to hear you're doing well, although no one asked. Don't worry, folks. I'm back in charge here, so we won't have oversensitive Martin and young whippersnapper Snowflake Connor down below either. Right, lads, shall we get into it? Big news of the day, obviously, was Marc Canham announcing that he will be stepping down as Chief Football Officer. I've said it right? Or
CFO.
CFO.
Lord Master of Football in Ireland. There he is there. And of course, the other day, or the day after this, David Courell faced the media. To be fair, which was actually a scheduled meeting. Of course, the FAI are going around speaking to the media about the football pathways plan and academy funding and all this sort of thing, just to sort of dampen any fears. That's probably the wrong expression, but basically to allay any fears.
No.
What?
They obviously listen to the podcast. Well, I said we need to hear from David Courell.
Yeah. Yes, yeah, of course, Martin.
You
want to be careful because you do realise David probably will be watching this. But of course, it was a scheduled meeting to allay any fears about and doubts and misinformation about their pathways plan and academies and all, which I think is very good. Actually, good, transparent, get them out there, and have them chatting away to the media. But of course, he did talk to the he talked to RTE as well, lads. We had a look at that. It's on the YouTube channel. It's like a 10-minute interview, sit-down interview, where he talks about Marc Canham. It was just very interesting. He said that Marc took a couple of weeks off, didn't he, from work? Now, he said time off, but I don't know if that was holiday.
He said annual leave, I think, so it was holiday, yeah.
Yeah, and he had like a bit of reflection, and I think there was some sort of... I think they kind of knew that he wasn't very happy in it. I think that's what I got from it, and then he just came back and said, yeah, look, I'm not really feeling this and I need to move on. It was said in the interview, wasn't it, that not really a surprise, not really a shock, but surprising, because I think because he was a few weeks ago, wasn't he? He was on about his pathways plan and all this with the media. And man, now he's on his way out.
Yeah. Well, it's not surprising though, is it really? As I said to you on Sunday, Martin, I just think it's a simple fact. The reality is he probably just wasn't enjoying it really, and he probably has a job lined up in England, because the thing is, with his CV and the record behind him and the roles he's had, it's not going to be hard for him to get a job. I'd say he has something lined up, or he can easily in the next couple of months go into another role. I'm sure he's made more than enough money with this role at the FAI, but it is a lot of money to step away from, I'd imagine, if he's not going to another role. But I just think the reality is, when you're an Englishman that's not Irish football connected in any aspect, I don't believe he was before he came over to Ireland, you're not going to have the same passion that us three would have for the game, that you're going to dedicate basically, if you're in that role, you kind of need to dedicate your life in some aspects is to developing the game, not just turn up from 9 to 5 every day. You need to be really passionate about it, and you need to be vocal with the fan base or vocal with people in the media. And I don't blame him leaving the end of the day. A lot of things like weren't in his favour in terms of things. It's so almost impossible to get the government funding that Irish football needs for the stuff he wanted to put into place. And then there was obviously the few aspects of the manager situation and stuff that we all know about. But I couldn't imagine you, as someone who, I don't know if you were an Irish person, you'd really enjoy that role because there's so much scrutiny on you. But especially as someone that's coming in as an outsider who probably just wants to do his job and go home in the day and not face the media pressure on top, I'd say it was probably it was his time to move on.
Yeah, it wasn't enjoyable. Of course, you you guys spoke about that at length on Tuesday, not Sunday, Connor.
It was Tuesday. I forgot about that.
And you can check it out. Of course, other things he spoke about as well were about the finances. He was talking about the League of Ireland Academy funding. And he was also talking about the Colin Healy and communications. This is what he had to say about this, Martin. I'm going to get your thoughts on this. I'm reading this directly from the Irish Independent, Dan McDonnell. Courell refused to elaborate on the status of former senior women's boss Eileen Gleeson, who remains an employee of the association with no clearly defined role. He did also face questioning around the handling of Colin Healy's messy exit from the organisation, episode which angered a lot of people within Irish football and also presented tricky questions for Carla Ward, who, of course, was came in after Eileen Gleeson, the current Ireland manager. A statement by Healy about his dissatisfaction centred around a text from Courell, which gave the impression the CEO believed he was leaving for another job and that the FAI would have been open to working with him otherwise. Courell said any confusion was cleared up at a subsequent press conference, but any confusion was cleared up, but at a subsequent press conference, he put the misunderstanding down to Healy's interpretation. Meanwhile, Ward said she only told Healy wasn't a staff option when she came in, or said she was told that. Sorry, I'm butchering this, lads. She was told that Healy wasn't a staff option when he came in, despite the FAI claiming they were always open to Healy being retained. It's been a damaging episode with the fact that Healy is mourning the loss of his wife, placing extra scrutiny on the FAI duty of care. And then after sticking with the party line by saying he stood over the football decision to release Healy, Courell held his hands up somewhat when asked if he stood over the handling of the personal side. This is what Courell had to say. I think that there are aspects of it that could have been better. There's no doubt about that. How he approached the press conference on the day, our engagement, there's learnings for all involved. He wouldn't talk about Cathal Dervin, who's filed a workplace relations committee complaint against the FAI, claiming he had been sidelined under Jonathan Hill, basically because he's only on 21's duty and such. But obviously, Martin, I mean, obviously the Healy episode was very damaging, wasn't it?
It was, yeah, and I kind of do appreciate that David Courell came out and done a press conference with just clarifying some of the points on that. And I think that it's been a challenging time for David Courell coming in, on the back of Jonathan Hill leaving as an interim. The Marc Canham thing. Let's also remember on the Marc Canham, we had a failed qualification campaign for the women's team on the back of the World Cup. I think actually that needs a bit more scrutiny. The change of Vera Pauw was solely really his decision.
Yeah.
Bringing in Eileen Gleeson, then it's not worked out to qualify. Even I was listening to another podcast on Irish football, like the Girls in Green one. And, I think they're quite right in that, they do need money, obviously, as we all do in Irish football and all parts of it. But the fact is, the interest in the women's game has died off a little bit on the back of that World Cup, which it should be at its very, very highest, but it has died off. That's a fact in the numbers of interactions and playing, and even probably ticket sales as well. We've made some grounds on that, but ultimately, I think Canham did make that kind of decision with Vera Pauw, Eileen Gleeson, and not qualifying was very, very damaging. So we've definitely taken a step back there. We obviously know as well with the protracted appointment of Stephen Kenny's successor, that's gone against him. I feel, as I said, though, David Courell has come in as an interim. It's great to hear from him. We do need to hear from him more and more. And as we're going to speak about, Eamon Dunphy's views very shortly, I think this is an opportunity, though, for Courell now. Like, we've kind of cleaned house a little bit on the back of, we can kind of forget the two Englishmen in a sense, because I think that was.
I know a third that needs gone.
I
know a third that needs gone.
Cheers. But you know what I mean? I think, you've got to move on with it. And I think we need to judge David Courell as a CEO on what happens from now. And this thing with the pathway is a key thing for Canham as well. I was always worried about he might just leave. And I do hope that we've spent a lot of money on this, let's be honest, right? So we have to try and implement it now. I think they will backtrack on some things that he was trying to put in place, because
he did say, though, that they're going to go with it 100%.
They're going with it.
They're going to
calendar thing. Do you think the calendar
biggest
thing will
get? He did say the biggest thing is the calendar, and he said we are the only country in 55 UEFA states that doesn't have an aligned calendar through football. So
we've got to do it now. Like, it's not worked for years. We've got to just implement and put that in place and support it.
And just for context there, as well as for anyone listening, he did say in the interview as well that there will be some flexibility with the June, July, and August months. If they can't do it for whatever, like there will be room to maneuver. He also did say that they put that to a vote. They could have actually just said, right, you're doing it, because as you said, Connor, we're the only one of 55 UEFA nations that don't. And he said, no, we want to put it out there because I think they wanted that olive branch with the disillusioned clubs and. That have been disillusioned with the FAI.
They did,
decades.
as far as I understand, they did put it out to the vote.
And you did, yeah.
But the way they did it was, again, has been open to criticism. But what you've got now is when the vote went against or went in favour of what the FAI wanted to do, the people who are against it are still shouting about it and moaning about it and complaining to their local TDs. And that's the local TDs then. I know this for
not just the Irish way, though. Like
it is, though. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's just like the TDs have woken up to it now, and it's been so insignificant to some of them. Let's not forget they had an election recently and things like that. So, but it was so insignificant to them as part of that campaign. Now that they're elected locally in some of their constituencies, they're now waking up to these complaints about football and going, "Oh, was there a vote? Was there?" And then they're listening to their votes.
Who was voting?
Definitely the case in rural Kilkenny. I know that for a fact.
Who was voting on this? Was it people involved in the FAI? Is it development officers? Obviously, there's a development officer in each county. Is it them that's voting, or is it people involved with the leagues in these counties, or is it like say for example, Cavan, Monaghan League got their own vote each, or was it
kind of
just
that
simply
way.
people
As far as I
involved in the
understand, it was
FAI?
that. It was that basically. You went to whoever operates your league, and it was that.
Because I'd imagine
That's
there's
what it
quite a
was.
big shift between who voted in and not between the rural counties and the city counties. And I'd imagine the city places would have a higher stay or say in all this, because of the fact is there's so many people that it's easier for them to adapt to a summer football calendar.
Yeah, I mean, I said this off air. Obviously, I wasn't on the live one, but it just seems to be, no matter what Canham, I don't know how one person solves the issue of football in Ireland. There's so much wrong with it. There's so much that's entrenched. Where a lot of leagues have been kind of left up to their own devices for decades. I'm not the most well versed on the system of football in Ireland, to be fair. But from my limited understanding of it, it just looks like there's such a distrust of the governing body. There's always people always worry of the governing body, whatever country, but there's a real distrust of the FAI. That's decades, and things that have gone wrong, scandals, etc. Nothing to do with the current administration. And they've sort of built this thing up themselves, and then they're kind of asked to get into, well, why don't you fall in line with us now? And it's like, well, why should we have anything to do with you when we were abandoned for decades, and now we're doing our own thing? No. There's a lot of that as well, and I can imagine for Marc Canham, in defense of him, that must have been exhausting dealing with that, because Ireland's a very unique country in so many different ways, and this is one of them as well. How do you fix these decades-old problems? Which to be fair, Canham did say, David Courell did say that we need somebody. If it's an internal solution, great. If it's an external solution, i.e. outside of Ireland, we're going to go there. We want the best person. And I do like that. I think the problem with, and I'll reserve my opinion on Canham in the next section, onto the next section, but I do think they will need a great salesman, who's going to be able to go out and communicate with these guys at a local level and a regional level and a parochial level, and get them on board and say, right, you're going to lose a bit of this, you're going to lose a bit of that, but the greater good of Irish football. And David, and sorry, Colin, I'll let you get it, but to quote, David Courell, we all want the same thing. We might just have different visions of it. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, but as you're right, what you're saying, we need a face. We need someone, whether he is the person that makes the final decision at the end of the day or not, we need someone that can come out and talk and can openly talk in the media. And the big thing is speak honestly. Like, it feels like at times there's a protection. It's like someone's got a big protection boot around Abbottstown that you can't let a leak out. You can't let anything out. You can't speak honestly. Everything is, as I said, with Canham, it was always, we believe in our process. Our process is this. We're so tight-lipped. We're not saying anything. We can't say. Sometimes just come out and speak, especially the manager situation. He spoke, in fairness, he spoke too late when he done that interview, and it ended up being a bit of a car crash. Just a bit of honesty, just a bit of even putting leaks out there, saying, because you can push leaks out easily, but because they're so, let's keep not everything together and say nothing. I think that can backfire in a way. People like honesty, especially in Ireland, and especially Irish people can be very. I know there's been years of distrust, but people can be very, very swayed very easily if someone's a good salesperson or someone can speak in a tone that people agree with. It just feels like there's too much of, we'll say nothing and we'll try and keep it to ourselves. And we, like, especially when you'd probably we had two English people at the head of the FAI there for the last, 3 years. David Courell is still relatively new in, especially when he was interim only for a while. And then he needs someone along the lines that can be a partner, or someone that can come in and at least be the face. He can at least talk well publicly. He can go up to people. He can make friends with people, especially in Ireland. Everyone loves to be a bit of lick arse. If he has to be a lick arse to the government, there has to be a lick arse to bodies around the country, or even Stephen. We had a lot of Stephen Bradley giving out about Canham, or some, even someone that is that sort of way that can go up and have a conversation with it. Because with the reality is, a lot of people in Ireland will end up backing you if you simply just go have a conversation with them, or you see him in a match, you shake his hand, you say, oh, well done, I've been very impressed by you. Like something that can very sway someone. You don't even have to say what your plans are or what you want to do. You just have to build some sort of relationship, not staying away from everyone and avoiding them at all costs. And your only way of communication with, say, for example, Stephen Bradley is by answering questions asked by the media that then is brought to Stephen Bradley at his next press conference. There needs to be at least a bit of communication in some aspect.
Yeah. Sorry, Martin, you want to come in there?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, right. So because this is quite complex to deal with, because where the FAI have come from, there was loads of leaks. There was lots of people unhappy, massive disharmony. People were embarrassed to work for the FAI years ago. There definitely were, in the wake of John Delaney and things like that. And even now, there's so many things to sort out. I mean, you mentioned Cole Durban there. Like, he's got a claim from an employment thing, basically, of how he's been treated. What they have been doing, because we've heard that alluded to this week, you know, they have been having these regular weekly staff meetings with everybody. So they have communication with Abbottstown, I would guess, is actually quite good. They are trying to avoid leaks by trying to keep everyone informed so that there's not misinformation coming out there. But it still is so disjointed. That's the fact of it. People are still probably a bit unhappy. You know, there was talk of redundancies. I mean, it really
still is
went wrong now. You know, with Jonathan Hill, with the holiday thing that went up in front of the Oireachtas under Jonathan Hill, that really undermined the kind of changes that he was supposed to bring in and you know, be very transparent, the new FAI in a sense, because the staff are all going, well, you know, I can't claim payment in lieu of holidays, and I've been told I have to have all my holidays now. You know, it was all still a bit of a mess over there, and there is still that distrust. So it's very, very difficult to do the communication part of it. And also, we do have a communications department within the FAI, and they do a great job on social media and everything like that. You know, the match program, all those things they do. Some of it they do really, really well, but they are still going to be fighting fires in a sense with at the hierarchy, the top level of the FAI, because ultimately it comes down to funding. We need money. They're trying to get that off the government. So you do need to have a very good public speaker, and you do need to have a kind of someone who understands politics as well and how these TDs work. And you're right, Connor, if you're going around shaking hands with the right people and you're talking the same kind of party line of what Irish football wants to be about, that is what's going to be needed. Now, David Courell's come in as a CEO, and he's trying to put all these structures in place, which I believe will be in place or is there. And, you know, they're all answerable to a board now. But ultimately, because of the investment and money, the backing, the bailout from the government, we've got a board there who are not football people. Yeah, that board who run the FAI now are not all football people. The only football person on that is Paki Bonner, really. And Paki Bonner played in the World Cup however many years ago, 30, 40 years ago. All right, so 35 years ago. Okay, right. So,
and he doesn't live in Ireland, by the way, which is a massive thing.
No, he doesn't. Yeah, and I'm not being overcritical of that or Paki Bonner, but you know, these are the people who are making very, very important decisions in Irish football and accountable to a board who may be very, very knowledgeable from other positions they've held in businesses, and that's the way the FAI has to operate now. So it's very, very difficult when you've got no money, and that's why the women's game can't develop. The men's game will still do okay. You know, they're still going to be interested in that. Obviously, you know, Ronaldo coming to Lansdowne Road is going to be a big draw on tickets and things like that. It will spike interest, and the success isn't there in the team and the performances at the moment. But like I've always said on this pod, you know, I think where they do need to engage better is with some of these ex-pros, even Dunphy. Well, perhaps not even bothered about Dunphy. Let him just be a soundbite.
He let him be Dunphy, right? Because he's just going to be Dunphy.
But you know, like the likes of you know, James McLean, Stephen Bradley, those people who are involved in Irish football or can have an input or had relatively recent involvement in Irish football, instead of them slagging off the association, engage with them a bit more. That's what they need to do. And
I think Courell is open to that. He did say that.
I think he is. Yeah, he will.
He wants to talk. He'll talk to any League of Ireland manager.
Yeah.
But the thing is, the problem is we all know what we all know. David Courell is trying to do the right thing, but you can't just put stuff out there saying I'm willing to talk to any manager, and I would talk to any manager. Most of us would talk to any manager, but the reality is he's probably going to have to pick up the phone himself and contact them and ask them, or even send an email or make a thing to the club. Would he be interested in meeting for coffee or even over Zoom or something? Because the reality is a lot of these people don't have the trust in the FAI to be like, oh yeah, Courell said he talked to anyone, so I'll give Courell a call, because the reality is most of them wouldn't. Would they know David Courell or would have any sort of connection? So like the reality is, with like say for example, I think with James McLean, David Courell would have to probably go out of his way, or not really, I wouldn't say go out of his way, but he'd have to contact McLean's probably agent or someone and say, well, could I have a conversation with James? I'd like to think he'd have some positive impacts he could make on Irish football, or have a good conversation, because the reality, I think it's extremely unlikely we'd see James McLean pick up the phone and ring him, especially we just came in there with the Canham situation with the money himself. Gavin Bazunu, Seamus Coleman, I think it was Jack Byrne was the other person who put money in for the scholarship program, which didn't go towards anything relating to what it was supposed to go towards, which would probably has left a very bad taste in James McLean's mouth after what has happened with that. So I think you'll have to reach out to him, not just expect him to pick up the phone.
I agree. And I agree with what you're saying there, and also yourself, Martin. Like, I think this is now David Courell's moment. He walked in there. Marc Canham, there's a lot of misconceptions about the FAI. Someone said to me the other day, they're going to watch this and text me, and they said, this guy Courell, like, he hired Canham, didn't he? And I went, no, he didn't. John Hill did. Canham's been in the job 3 years, which is mad to think. 3 years. This is really now David Courell. David Canham, Jesus. David Courell's chance now to really grasp the nettle. He's a big job in his hands. We need to, you're right, Martin, need to hear more from him. I liked his interview with RTE. I thought he was very good. I thought he was articulate. He was clear. He struck me as someone transparent. He struck me as somebody who could talk to the government and actually have a good conversation. We've all spoken to him. We get on very well with David. I like him. I like him on a personal level. He is very personable. He went out. He showed up the Lansdowne legislature. I'm not just saying this, because we're trying to like self-flagellate here. No, like he went and met with the fans at the pub. So he is more personable. I think he's sort of still kind of finding his feet in the job, and now this is going to be his moment. And I want to see more of him. I want to hear more of him. Not to the state where it gets to like John Delaney levels, but we need to hear more from our CEO. We never heard anything from Hill. He was never personable. He never engaged on social media. You never heard anything from him. I never met the man.
He was just be honest, he was useless. He was there for the paycheck.
He was rubbish.
He lived in London. The reality is you cannot live in the other country if you're trying to run a football organization and you're trying to turn it around. You're not just trying to run it, you're trying to take it from the depths of hell and take it back to at least being sustainable.
And just like Jonathan Hill showed up to the PAC, Public Accounts Committee. I'm never going to delete that picture of that. And that's the fucking email that they had there. All this stuff, absolute shambolic. They were to go up to the Public Accounts Committee and ask for £1 billion or whatever it was, for hundreds of millions of euros. And then they show up with this, and they never even got to talk about the money. And it set us back years. And I actually said this to David Courell, Martin, you kind of pulled me away a little bit at the risk 40. And there again, he was at the risk 40th. He was meeting. It's one of the biggest supporters club, if not the biggest supporters club, and he wanted to meet fans and he engaged with everybody. This is a good step. This is in the right direction. Now we have to see, is David Courell the man for the job? That will be up to David Courell and probably a little bit of fortune. Marc Canham caused a lot of problems. I'll talk about him in a few minutes and in the next session of the pod. But the problem is with the FAI as well, that it's very, like, the FAI is such an easy target. And, I had a text from a fan of the pod and a mate of mine, actually. We've become good friends over the last few years. And he's saying that the FAI, he's listening, I'm sure, the FAI should be disbanded. That's it. We should get rid of it, And I'd say, well, what's the point? What's that going to do? It's just so easy to batter the FAI over something. James McLean will come out and have a go. Stephen Bradley will come out and have a go. There's so many people having a go, and you make it so easy. And it kind of gets to the point where you think, would you just fucking defend yourselves or come out swinging? Something. Come out and do something. Stop making a balls of things. Stop fucking sleepwalking from one disaster to the next. And I'm hoping now with David Courell in charge, obviously, a couple of things happened there. We don't know the full facts of the Colin Healy situation, but
he did in the two. If you remember from the statement, he did say he thought David Courell was a very decent, honest man. Yes, he didn't say about Canham. In fairness, I do think Canham had the best interests in his heart whilst doing this job the whole time. It just didn't work out.
Yeah. But no, and just finish up on this, and I think with Courell now, he just has to No more cock-ups. Nice, boring, calm, get on with the stuff. They're going around, they're going to meet people, they're going to talk to people. And you are right. He needs it. Like, I remember Noel Mooney, he tried to get Brian Kerr on board, who hated the FAI over the way he felt he was treated by John Delaney. That's a podcast in itself. And he turned around and he reached out. He reached out to Brian Kerr, tried to get Brian Kerr involved, and Brian Kerr said no, not interested. And because Mooney was tarred the same brush with John Delaney by your man, the sports, Shane Ross, another gobshite of the highest order. He's the sports minister at the time. He made an absolute meal of that, complete meal of that, and it's just very easy, like, to do that. But yeah, he needs to go out. You're right. He needs to ring people, get on board, say, look, I get it. I understand why you're annoyed with the FAI. I'm annoyed with what has gone on in the past too. But help me turn a page. Help us move on, where it's not just a big football that we can all kick around the place. And it does stand for excellence, and it does stand for professionalism, and it does stand for everything that's right about Irish football. And that's what the FAI needs. But it's just got to stop shooting itself in the foot. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, they need some quick wins. They do need some quick wins. They need some real leadership, which I think is a massive opportunity. And I know he won't do this, David Courell, because I think he is a decent lad. And yes. I know even people listening to this will be going, "Oh, you were so defensive of the FAI tonight." But I think I'm just kind of fed up, like you, Dave. I think of the FAI bashing. Like I'm quite happy in a sense that I think the pathway will be put in place. But I'm quite happy Hill's gone and Canham's gone, because that anti-English thing's not there now in a sense. So, because I think that was a significant factor in it, and I think they made some massive failings. But I think
they didn't help themselves though. They did.
Yeah, they didn't. But I don't
just
think
for context,
Courell could easily just go now. David Courell could just say, I don't think he will, but he could just say, look, we've changed now. Look, we move forward. We people who were problematic or didn't really deliver or weren't very accountable are not there anymore, and we're not going to make that same mistake again. So they've got to get the appointment of the next football officer,
just director
in there. Yeah, I mean, we're all fighting for that role. But I just want a bit more positivity about it, and that's where I think we can't just dwell on it. And this is going to segue lovely into Mr. Eamon Dunphy's view on it. It's so archaic, it's ridiculous.
Here he is here now, and you're absolutely right. Let's move on. Eamon Dunphy, of course, now writes for the Mirror as well as a star. But yes, he wrote this article here in the Irish Mirror. Where is it? Let me find it here. I'm going to read the article out to you, chaps.
Oh God! Can we put you on mute while you read this?
Absolutely not. Eamon Dunphy column. I won't miss Marc Canham. In fact, I barely even knew he was here. The FAI's chief football officer is leaving, and good riddance to him. We need to appoint Irish people to these jobs. It may have come as a great shock to people to learn that Marc Canham, the chief football officer of the FAI, is about to leave. But to be honest, I'm still trying to figure out when he even arrived, because to my mind, he made no impact in his 3 years in the job. And by the way, what exactly was his job? Initially appointed as director of football, he leaves as chief football officer, which reminds me of the sketch in Monty Python's Life of Brian, when there's an argument between the People's Front of Judea and the Judean People's Front. That's the level of farce you get with the FAI, which has forever left me feeling underwhelmed, angry, disappointed, and bemused. They may have reached peak inadequacy during the John Delaney years, but they were unimpressive before he arrived and are still uninspiring now. He was actually quite... I'll continue. This chap Canham sums the new FAI up. He didn't leave his mark. In fact, he barely even leaves his mark. I don't know. He's making a play on his name there. Let's re-examine the highlights package of his time in Ireland. The Irish women's team reached the first ever World Cup under Vera Pauw. Her award was to be shown the exit door. Stephen Kenny brought about much needed reform and got no luck. He too was ushered towards the exit. Next game came the longest and most futile search since Lord Lucan disappeared. Eventually, after 8 months, the FAI found their man, a dentist from Ireland. So that's Marc Canham's legacy. He, like his Dutch predecessors, Wim Covermans and Ruth Doctor, arrived here without a detailed knowledge of Irish culture, Irish schoolboy soccer, or the League of Ireland, and it showed in their work. What's needed now is a commission to be set up whereby Irish football's 3 wise men, John Giles, Niall Quinn, and Liam Brady, head a panel that investigates what has gone wrong in the game here and what needs to go right? The answer is government investment. But if this government were to hand over millions to the FAI, it would be nothing short of a disgrace. You can't trust those guys to make smart decisions. Where the money has to go is into schoolboy clubs in terms of the facilities and the coaches, because these are the clubs who have made things happen for Irish football over decades, not just years. They have the expertise, but not necessarily the facilities. And that's where the government can come in. They can bypass the FAI and go directly to these clubs with their grant aid. Certainly, we need something to happen because we are no longer producing players. There's no Irish player at Manchester United, City, Arsenal, Chelsea. We have Kelleher at Liverpool, but how much longer? Then he goes on about blah, 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 blah. Different countries. The FAI in the wisdom introduced Underage League of Ireland football, which immediately diluted the quality of schoolboy soccer, and standards have decreased. That's why we need Irish people holding the important jobs in Irish football, and it's why we need people like Brady Quinn, Giles to front up the commission, which will steer the game in the right direction. We cannot keep going to people who impress grey-haired board members with a PowerPoint presentation. We need someone who is more comfortable in a tracksuit than in a suit, who knows the game. The next person in has to have...
Oh, he's still going.
Yeah, I'm trying to do this, Connor. The next person in has to have a status and a plan, and not just the ability to click a mouse on a keyboard and move seamlessly from one PowerPoint slide to the next. The fan on the street has a right to have someone they rate in charge. If you ask the ordinary fan who Marc Canham is, they wouldn't have a clue. Mention Jonathan Hill's name, and again, you get a blank face looking back at you. Mention Hill's successor, David Courell, and once more, you would have stony faces staring at you. I have no idea what Hill or Courell sound like, look like, or stand for. You might as well have had Benny Hill in there instead of Jonathan. As for Canham, well, off with you, young man. Your legacy is leaving us with an Icelandic dentist in charge of a national team. A man who may well be able to make your teeth shine, but who has certainly been unable to put a smile back on the face of Irish football. We won't miss you, Marc Canham. To be honest, I barely even knew you were here. I know, Connor, you haven't actually sit there in silence for 2 minutes. It's absolutely kills the patience of a fucking 2-year-old. But anyway, a lot to unpack there. To be fair, he's not wrong about a lot of... There's some stuff he's way wider than Mark, which you're going to get into, but some stuff he's not wrong about. No,
as we've just discussed, though, that's the same thing. Like the criticism of Jonathan Hill and Marc Canham, a lot of it will be kind of justified, I think. But it's written. He's not written this, has he?
He's not.
He's had a chat with someone who's written it very much in his voice, very well ghostwritten, to be honest. Because I don't think if you had a conversation with Eamon Dunphy, he's not going to understand half of what's gone on in his current kind of guise as a journalist or whatever he is now. And fair play to him, he's still on a payroll of these newspapers because he's fantastic for a soundbite. But I mean, a couple of things apart from the kind of funny little quips and things like that. Where he's on about they may have reached peak inadequacy during the John Delaney years. Like, Dunphy was fully on board with John Delaney. He was at his birthday party in Mount
You're one of the good guys, John.
Yeah. So, that's just shite. He knew exactly what John Delaney was like, as did a lot of Irish football supporters. And I'm speaking even as the chairman of RIS London. I was secretary then. John Delaney was fantastically efficient of how he engaged with supporters clubs and got people on side. That's the fact of it, as is eulogized very well in Champagne football, right? So we know how John Delaney operated, and he did a lot of good for Irish football. I will still always stand by that, but ultimately at a cost. He did do some good things in Irish football, right? But ultimately, with the Bank of Ireland funding it all, or the government, basically, because it was just not a business fit for purpose. I think, there's probably not been enough scrutiny of some of the decisions of Marc Canham and Jonathan Hill. Even I think in time, I actually feel more sorry actually for the women, as I said earlier, because I think on the back of that World Cup, Irish football, women's football should be at the absolute highest it is, and it's not, and that's because of that treatment of Vera Pauw, and that was all led into it, and that was where really Marc Canham came to the fore. That's when I first heard his name, actually, that he was doing this independent review of Vera Pauw. But the other thing I would say on this, and there is a lot to unpack in it, but calling for John Giles and Niall Quinn and Liam Brady to be involved now in making key decisions in Irish football is ridiculous, because it's too many generations ago now. The only person I would say who would fit the bill out of the three of them, Niall Quinn, understands how the politics of it all works in Ireland with the GAA
Great salesman
interest that he has.
I'd have him as a salesman.
He came in and he done very, very well for a little bit. You know, everyone was thinking he was going to be the saviour of Irish football. But ultimately, and the history of this will be there, I'm sure, as well, and has been covered. But there was all these suggestions even for a League of Ireland, and the presentations. It's ironic that you talk about Niall Quinn and PowerPoint presentations to be critical of Canham and Jonathan Hill, because when they put the proposal together, which was a group that Niall Quinn was kind of heading up, it was ridiculous. Like, basically, it was laughed at. It wasn't feasible. It wasn't going to work. I think Niall Quinn is a fantastic ambassador for Irish football, and it will be a very familiar face to the general public in Ireland, of course. And there's definitely a role for him to play in Irish football, I would say. A little bit like the role that Packy Bonner's probably doing now. But I can't have that generation now of Brady, Giles, and Niall Quinn making key decisions in Irish football. That's just ridiculous.
It goes to show you a touchy. It's like he's on about, like, to be fair to Marc Canham, he's on about what's Marc Canham's legacy. Well, obviously the Pathways program, which by on the outside of it looks very good. Now, Dunphy also shows, Johnny Giles as the oracle for everything. Yeah, maybe at one stage back in the 70s, yeah, he was. He played his part in bringing Irish football forward. Niall Quinn could be still something there for him as a salesperson. I wouldn't have him as the guy heading it all up, coming up with the ideas. And Liam Brady, yeah. He was a youth. He was the head of the youth development in Arsenal, but that was a long time ago. And football changes, players change, like the game moves on. And also, you don't need three people are not going to solve the problems. Like, I think Courell said it was about 40,000, was it something like thousands of hours worth of study went into this Pathways program. It's there. The Pathways program is there, which I think is probably, you touched on, Connor, would be the legacy of Marc Canham if it fully gets implemented. And if it does get implemented, it will bring Irish football on. It's just the stuff. But stuff that Duffy did say, though, is correct. Like, you imagine someone like Marc Canham. This is my little bit around on Marc Canham. You imagine he's someone who interviews very well, very impressive with his PowerPoints. I've met people like that. They interview brilliantly. They love an L presentation, and they look great. But then we'll lack with management skills, we'll lack with personal skills. And of course, these are things that, unfortunately, when you're coming to a country like Ireland and you're trying to get this message, and you're trying to, like, his job was to disrupt Irish football, Marc Canham, and basically get people on board, because Irish football's in a mess. Disrupt that, get in there, rip it to shreds, and then basically get under the bonnet of it, and then go to task, come up with a plan, and then sell it. He came up with a plan, but he couldn't sell it to people. And I think I've walked past Marc Canham, but I've never met him. He doesn't strike me as somebody who's personable. I'm not going to go into personal attacks. I've never met him, but he didn't strike me as a very personal person. Someone with charisma. Maybe he's different in the boardroom setting. I don't know. As I said, I've never met him. But here's somebody who, somebody can come into Irish football. Simpler times, 86, Jack came in. Who's this guy? Tore it all down, and he rebuilt it, and people loved him. He got Ireland, and Ireland loved him in return. He bought a house here, etc. There's a statue of McGurk. We know what Jack did. Simpler times, but it can happen, and he just never was the guy really to do that. Marc Canham, really. And of course, yeah, he did. He did seem to have I think, was he supposed to get involved in hiring and firing? Connor, when he came in for us, was he supposed to get involved in hiring and firing of managers? Was that his remit?
I don't know. That's the problem. I don't know when he was director of football is at club level.
Yeah, that was. It was
definitely a part of it, but I wouldn't say.
It was a joint job at one stage, wasn't it? And then the other guy, I can't remember the name off the top of my head now, but he stepped down away from it. He's actually been linked with coming back to the job now. But it didn't work out. A lot of that, and again, that was a little bit alarm bells. But then Marc Canham established himself with a very powerful position, and but ultimately, even just the Vera Powell situation undermined Vera Powell. That was it, and so did Jonathan Hill with whatever it was about Vera Pauw they weren't happy with, or whether they're listening to players and player power, players getting too big for themselves. I mean, some people are very split on opinion on that, aren't they? With Katie McCabe thinking how she's conducted herself with that World Cup, questioning the manager and things like that. And then the kind of the pressure that was put under Vera Pauw, even in the preparation for that World Cup, with all the allegations coming out about how she behaved with players.
She came out and said, like, who's this guy?
Yeah, exactly. Why like it is.
Who
are you to question me in a sense? So like who is this person, and is that your remit? And he obviously was able to satisfy the FAI and the board that it was his remit.
It sounds like they over relied on him a little bit, and he wasn't somebody to deal. He strikes me as somebody who's there to, right, you get on that, you design that, you engineer that. You're an engineer. We're going to keep you away from people, because as I said, I never met him, but he just struck me as somebody who just didn't exude a lot of charisma. And I mean, the management, the Irish management, like Dunphy's on about Stephen Kenny. Oh, he was, Stephen Kenny had to go. Come on. Heimer could. So far, so good with Heimer. I've been impressed enough with Heimer, to be fair. Dunphy that's a hill he's going to die on. Fair enough. The Kenny and Heimer thing, but it was a complete mess. 8 months. The process isn't complete. He made a complete balls of that. A few other things as well. Like
even appointing a women's manager as interim. Aidan Gleeson was an interim manager. She wasn't the full-time manager brought in to do things. When you get rid of a manager like Vera Pauw, who brought us to a World Cup for the first time in women's football, you think if you're going to get rid of, you have someone lined up that's going to come in straight away as a replacement, not bring in an interim.
Yeah.
And then she does extremely well in a Nations League group that they were expected to win every game, and then it backfires come the Euros.
That'd be like Jack after Euro '88, sacking Jack. Oh, you didn't get out of the group, Jack. It's a first ever, national. it's a first ever major tournament. We didn't get out of the group. Yeah, we didn't like how you were with the players who were going to sack you. It was madness. It was madness.
No, but the thing is, Eileen Gleeson. I mean, it's just the chaos of Irish football. She was the head of women and girls football. She was like in charge of the kind of football strategy and pathway, basically the equivalent of Marc Canham. And then she got given the main job after Vera Pauw. So that job became vacant then, or Marc Canham kind of took it in a sense. And then she's gone back to nothing. So
still employed.
It's just mental. Irish football. I mean, look, I know we had champagne football, and we also had the team that Jack built.
Finish it up for me, Martin.
There should be so many books written on this. I mean, like journalists are doing a fantastic job with the analysis of it, but the chaos of it, and ultimately, I think it's always going to be that way. And I mean, and even just thinking of the team that Jack built, talk about John Giles. Even back to the Dunphy thing here, John Giles. Love John Giles, right? I've been in his company, brilliant, right? Absolute legend. But John Giles wasn't an angel as an Irish international. He didn't always turn up for Ireland and stuff. He fought for a lot of the rights and player power in a sense, but he did kind of technically go on strike sometimes and wasn't making himself available because he wasn't happy with how Irish football was ran. So, this is how it's always been in Irish football, and maybe we've just got to embrace the chaos. But I think. It's always going to be the case that we're going to need, despite when we're punching above our weight. If you think of the mess in the structure over the years, and even you're going on about like Jack's coming in and it needed him to kind of sort out the team and play a certain style. I mean, with the most talented crop we probably ever had, it did take him to kind of revolutionize it that way, but it wasn't fantastic football, but it did get results. And that's even what the argument sometimes is now with Heimer. Like he knows that he hasn't probably got the squad to like the most brilliant footballers. And one thing I would say actually, what does seem to be very well done in the FAI, from even social media interactions, seeing it is the coaching stuff does seem to be very organised. I see a lot of people on LinkedIn. I know football coaches or people who have done the courses seem to be very impressed with it, and I think maybe that is something that we have organised really well.
Not as impressive as that, Martin. Look at that, the soccer
coach, yeah,
from 1991.
From 91. But no, I just think like there's some things they are getting right, and I think we need to embrace that, of course. And ultimately, Lee, I'm really pleased this week that we've heard from David Courell. I think it's his time to stand up a little bit more and be, like Dunphy said, and Snipe, don't know who David Courell is. Well, let us know who he is, because he's a really good guy when I've met him. I want to hear from him and what his ideas are, and I really want him to say the kind of party line of, you've got to give us time with this. We're working loads and loads of things, and keep spinning out the positive. And it may well be spin, but talk about the positives and also engage, more importantly, with some of these key people in Irish football, Damien Duff, even James McLean. As Leaf put the olive branch out there to them and say, look, let's talk about the positives and let's keep being,
get him on board.
Yeah, embrace Irish football, not just slag it off all the time.
No, absolutely. Right, we're going to leave it there. A bumper episode of Lansdowne Roar.
We've one last thing. We have some breaking transfer news tonight. An exclusive by Rep Tracker.
Go for it.
Brodie Collins, who is a cousin of Nathan Collins, is leaving Shamrock Rovers for Schalke. I believe it'll be a first ever Irishman to play for Schalke. He will be joining Schalke on a 4-year deal, which is a
16-year deal, yeah.
16. You'd hope it could be 16-year deal. It wouldn't be bad now. And so he is he's still 15. He's 16 in July. So when he turns 16 in July, he will sign for the German Giants, who are they are touted as one of the best academies in Germany, like that, or a type of club that the way they make their money is by bringing through talented young players and then selling them on for money in the future. So it's good that he is getting out. Well, obviously not. You always want people like that to stay in Irish football, but if he's getting to an academy like Schalke, and the fact is he obviously has good people around him. If he has Nathan Collins as an example, as a family member who is showing him the right things to do and the way of approaching life as a professional footballer, and he'll be able to tell him what to do for moving away from home, because it's never easy for a player, but it's a huge step forward for him in his career, a way of getting to a club that will probably do everything to make sure he becomes a first team footballer there, and then hopefully sell him on for money in the future. And I'm sure Shamrock Rovers will benefit from that, presuming he does well in Schalke, which is a huge step forward. So I think Dave, I don't know if you checked, is he the first ever Irish player that will play for Schalke?
I don't know another one. Off the top of my head, he's not the first Irish player to play in the Bundesliga. Oh my God, the name escapes me.
The last one was Conor Noss. Conor Noss played for Mönchengladbach a couple of years ago.
Oh yeah, well, okay, yeah, fair. I was thinking of oh my God, what was his name? He only passed recently. Ginger lad.
Actually, sorry, we had Dan Rose was at Schalke, the goalkeeper who used to be at Everton. He was at Schalke. I remember he went to Schalke about 5-6 years ago, and he was in their academy for a couple of years now. He's playing D1 football in America, but in terms of outfielders, or if he goes on to make his first team debut, I'm sure he'll be certainly the first Irish player to play for Schalke's first team.
There you go. Well, finish on a high now, I suppose. Best of luck to him.
Can I mention one other thing? Sorry, there was a little bit of news for supporters. No, this is important. We are the voice of the fans, Dave.
Yeah.
And I know you don't. It might not matter to you two because you don't sit with the fans at Ireland games or stand with us up in the posh seats. But if you are intending to go,
where were you in Bulgaria?
What's that?
Where were you in Bulgaria?
Yep. Sorry, it's bad signal now.
Yeah. You go to Luxembourg as well, are you?
I'm going to Luxembourg, yeah. And what I'm saying is it's very important for the Irish fans who are not in the posh seats, is that the applications are open at the moment for Luxembourg. 2 categories. There's €40 ticket and a €20 ticket. Obviously,
buy the cheap one. Buy the cheap one. Don't buy the dear one, because you'll be put in the family section with no atmosphere. So make sure, as always, getting the cheaper side, that you'll actually be in the proper away end as such, because I'd say it would be a big disappointment if you turn up and you're beside all the families and by paying an extra €20 thinking you're getting a better ticket when you're in reality you're not.
The game won't sell out anyway, so don't worry too much about that. But yeah, there will be 2 sections, and the applications are open at the moment. They close quite soon. Next few days, it's going to be closing 1st or 2nd of May, I think it is. So that's just something that you are intending to travel. Make sure you do so. Apply as soon as possible.
Right. There we go. Happy now.
Right?
And yes. Ireland, by the way, Ireland schoolboys defeated England tonight 2-1, which is always a good thing to get one over on the English. So Ireland schoolboys, congratulations to beat them in Athlone tonight, which is always good to see.
Right. There you go.
2nd of May. 2nd of May is the deadline to apply for on the away portal with the FAI for the game.
And
there you go.
Does anyone have anything else to add to the podcast?
Nope. And
Great to have you on, Dave. Thanks for joining us.
Leave it there. We're going to leave it there, folks. Thank you very much for that. Jesus, if you're still with us, for more power to you guys watching at home. And of course, thank you for watching at home. And thank you as well, Martin and Connor. As you stayed awake for most of it. Please, please do like the video. Please do subscribe to the YouTube channel. Don't be an illegal watcher. Be a proper streamer. Be sound. Just be sound. Head over to Facebook, Instagram, and our Twitter account as well. And if you want an audio version of this, head over to lansdowne.ie or wherever you get your podcasts from, Spotify, that kind of thing. Yeah. Right, we're going to leave it there, guys. Thank you. I'm David Dunn. He is Martin Prendergast. He is Conor McAvoy. This is Lansdowne Roar, a bumper extra edition of Lansdowne Roar. Come on, you boys with green.